Thank you so much, Jason and Farron. So obviously, employee engagement can look very different across organizations, depending on a number of factors: your industry, your corporate culture, but also your leadership team and their key priorities. I'm very excited this morning to be joined now by 4 leaders from 3 very different companies whose organizations have each gone through their own unique journeys over the past several years. Firstly, I'd like to welcome Russ Dyer, who's joining us from Mondelez International, global snacking powerhouse. I'm sure you've heard of Cadbury, Oreo. They have a wide portfolio of brands. And as the VP of Global Communications, Russ leads the development and implementation of communication strategies for more than 90,000 employees worldwide. Russ is joined this morning by Joher Akolawala, Mondelez International's Senior VP and Global Chief Information Officer. And Joher is responsible for leading the company's information technology and solutions, and also its business process excellence organization. Joining us from Boston, we have Céline Schillinger at Sanofi Pasteur, a global leader in producing vaccines and a division of the pharmaceutical giant Sanofi. As the head of quality innovation and engagement, Céline has a wealth of experience designing and implementing new leadership and corporate transformation strategies at a global scale. And from London, we have Harry Miller from TSB Bank, a retail and commercial bank, previously a part of Lloyd's banking group and now a subsidiary of Sabadell Group. Harry is the head of internal communications and community engagement for TSB, and as such, she's focused on setting the strategic direction for their internal narrative, as well as leading communications for major change programs. So I want to start off by talking about sustained engagement, and more specifically, how employee engagement helps drive the strategy of an organization. Harry, you've been in a unique position where you've actually created a brand new bank, TSB, out of Lloyd's, a large traditional bank. Can you tell us how that happened?
So TSB is a UK bank, and we were born out of the financial crisis, which most of us will have experienced in some way, shape or form. And we needed to create a bank that was going to increase competition in the UK banking space and ultimately make banking better for everyone. So it was quite a big ask for us, and we needed to take our people with us on that journey. And we started out with about 4,000 people who were carved out from Lloyd's banking group. And we just needed to make sure that those guys knew why we were on this journey. They believed in what we needed to achieve. So engaging our teams was vitally important in that process.
Wow, so there you are trying to define and drive the culture for your new challenger bank. You've got 4,000 people. How did you create that level of engagement, of belief in the mission and the journey?
So in TSB, it was very important that we established some key values that would steer us as we were developing this and launching this new bank. 2 of the values that we set up were being collaborative and being transparent. And whilst they seem very simple in the banking industry, they were values that certainly seemed to kind of disappear and probably got us into this mess a little bit. So in TSB, we need to make sure that we created that water wheel of communication in our business, so that we're talking on a level, so we're not cascading information down to our people. It's very much a conversation, so that people own this bank. They feel empowered to make decisions within this bank, whether you are working in one of our branches or whether you are the CEO. It's equally important that we all believe in what we're trying to achieve and feel that you can make a difference.
Thank you, Harry. Céline, over to you. You've used engagement to drive a very important outcome for Sanofi Pasteur. Can you tell us why engagement is so important to your organization?
Sanofi Pasteur is the vaccine division of Sanofi. It is the world's largest company dedicated to the manufacturing of human vaccines. And as a world leader, we are responsible for manufacturing vaccines that protect people against more than 20 infectious diseases, totaling annually to more than 1 billion doses of vaccines every year that immunize more than 500 million people worldwide. So therefore, as a company, we must rigorously pursue quality in our manufacturing processes across the entire company. And as you know, vaccine manufacturing is a highly complex, very regulated activity. There are controls at each and every step of the manufacturing process. which is why we spend actually more than almost 70% of our time in quality controls. And every single employee, wherever of the company, wherever they sit, must be engaged and committed to pursuing quality, to ensuring quality, not just to make the company successful, but because we save lives.
So throughout the morning, we've talked about technology as an enabler for more transparent and open communications. Russ, Mondelez, we've said is a global powerhouse with a wide portfolio of brands. It can't be easy to connect people across that breadth. Can you tell us about your role as the head of corporate communications? How has some of your technology enabled you to create connection and dialogue across Mondelez at scale?
So we're a very global company. It's a key competitive advantage for us to have such a diverse geographic footprint. But with that footprint comes some challenges with increasingly virtual relationships and ways of working, more remote populations of employees, remote reporting lines. What Yammer does is it shrinks our world and it enables those human connections on a level that no other tools provide. From a communication standpoint, we spend a lot of time focusing on our people, the proof points of heroic efforts in driving our business and celebrating our successes and our people agenda. But there's nothing more powerful than arming a colleague with a tool that they can tell their own story. And there's so much that our colleagues are proud of that they share in real time, locally, and it'll make connections in a way that you can't through traditional communications channels.
That's very powerful. Joher, you and Russ have worked so closely together across communications and IT. Can you tell us how your IT team focuses on bringing value to the organization as a strategic partner for teams like Russ's? How does that collaboration work?
So if you think beyond the use cases, I think some of the things that we look for in the organization with the adoption of technology is what new capability does the technology bring in that we didn't have the ability to do before. And with Yammer, one of the things which was really good that we use often is to have a passionate conversation with colleagues around the world in a concentrated period of time where everybody can exchange their input and their thoughts. And I don't know if it's an official term or we call it Yam Jam internally, but the idea of having 80, 100, 200 people across 12 time zones all collaborating and talking about what they think of a certain business situation or a certain priority or even a certain social conversation that we would want to get into, the technology now makes it possible to interact while you have that many people engaging in the conversation. And that is something that, personally, from a technology owner standpoint, I really like to bring to the organization because that was a capability we didn't have before.
That's amazing. So, you're already living this move from thinking about communication to actually enabling real conversation. And Joher, you made a great point about introducing new high-value capabilities that really didn't exist before. So Harry, back to you as the communications owner at TSB. What new capabilities have you seen technology enable?
So these days, keeping people in TSB abreast of latest and breaking news is much easier than it has been ever before. We used to have to rely on, word of mouth, and often a lot of the time, you'd send an email out to certain layers of the organization, and they would then pass the message on, and you'd hope that they managed to get the message. So now, not only do we have extra tools that we can use, so we can Yammer notify people and it pushes up on their phone. We actually have metrics to tell us how deep that penetration has been, so we can assess it then to say, was that a successful way of delivering that message or was it not, and what do we need to do next time to make it better? So the data is as important to us as the tool in formulating what we're going to do in the future.
Russ, back to you. How have people at Mondelez leaned into the new experiences and capabilities that you and Joher have made available?
We soft launched in the middle of last year, and just in the back half of the year saw a number of really great use cases proving out the value of the tool. The first is just baseline engagement. One of our people strategies, as we call it, is to celebrate our success more And in an increasingly virtual working environment where a lot of employees work with reporting relationships across lots of different time zones, remote teams working that are not connected in the same space, we saw a real appetite to share and connect through Yammer quickly after we launched it. You can look at a function like sales that has a lot of employees out in the field. They are not in an office every day. They're in the supermarkets and our trade retail partners, and they want to connect and share what they're doing. So it wasn't just, again, a one-way push, but we found that the sales teams were taking these amazing photos of stunning in-store displays that they were doing that they were very proud of and sharing back. And it was creating just this great dialogue for an employee population that's historically been somewhat siloed and removed from the corporate communications experience. So that was just one great population and use case that we saw emerge. Another one was something that doesn't happen every year for a lot of companies, which is CEO transition and CEO succession. It was a great tool, not only as an opportunity for our colleagues to say farewell to our exiting CEO, share pictures, reflections, and connect directly with her, but also welcome the new CEO. And we look to Yammer to source real-time live questions and answers and dialogues for our global town halls. So again, new use cases and opportunities that we wouldn't have been provided without a tool like this in place for these unique experiences.
That's fantastic. Céline, as you were getting people engaged around quality, you wanted to unlock that sort of tacit tribal knowledge in your employees. And you launched an initiative, I think you called it corporate social activism. How did that go? What kind of uptake did you see?
We had high hopes for people to jump in, and our hopes were not disappointed. But when you tap into conversations that deal with the heart of our company's mission and purpose, engagement is really high. We started with a small Yammer group with 12 people about 3 years ago, and it's now about 2,000 people strong, and it keeps growing, which is fantastic. Every day there are like dozens of conversations happening. So knowledge is flowing like big time and worldwide, across layers, across sites, across culture, across languages. Some of our employees have created activist networks on big manufacturing sites that gather hundreds of employees. And we have seen people speaking up on Yammer and saying, hey, there was a problem, and here's what I did about it, or what we did about it, and this is what we got from that. So we established a new habit, that is to share wins. A win is an action. It's not just an idea, it's an action made by working together differently that makes yesterday better than today, or better than yesterday, or tomorrow better than today.
So one thing about creating engagement, especially sustained engagement, is that it leads to much more effective outcomes. It drives results for the business. Harry, let's turn to that. How have the initiatives that you've led positioned TSB Bank today?
So TSB today is in a great position. We're continuing to be a challenger on the banking high street. We're doing great work in the small business banking space, which is going to be a big area for us in 2018 and beyond. And our people are in a great place too. We're working super hard to get those things done, and obviously that can be really hard on teams. But because we've got a great collaborative and transparent approach in TSB, talking to each other really, really helps. And there are indicators that show that that's working. So, our employee engagement results are really positive still. And also things like the Sunday Times just recently put us in the top 5 for best big companies to work for in the UK, which is superb. And even better when you realize that we were the only bank in that space to be awarded that level.
And how about you, Céline? What results have you seen at Sanofi? And most importantly, perhaps, can you measure them?
The business benefits are absolutely tremendous, and they're easy to monitor because we have so many indicators in quality. So I'm not even talking about the cultural benefits, but really the hard data. What do they show us? They show us that we have improved our cost effectiveness a lot. We have been able to simplify with volunteers through good ideas coming from everywhere, sometimes up to 60% of critical manufacturing and business processes, saving a lot of our resources to be able to, and being able to dedicate them to more critical needs of our customers. A second area of benefit is the reduction in quality issues, in deviations. And deviations is when things don't go right. And we have seen a drop, a spectacular drop, double-digit drop in deviations that had never been seen in the 10 years prior to this project. Overall, we have reduced the risk profile of the company, which is tremendous. We have had a positive impact on supply, on write-offs, etc. But I would say probably the bigger picture that I see is one of behavior change. And that is often the most difficult thing to achieve in those business transformation projects. And I'm really proud and grateful that at Sanofi Pasteur, we have been able to achieve this at such a large scale because we manufacture vaccines, and vaccines save lives. So it's important to get that right.
I couldn't agree with you more, Céline. Congratulations to you all for the amazing success you've driven into your organizations, and thank you so much for joining us here today.